And there's more pain for the Australian airline, with Qantas set to axe more jobs as the flying kangaroo goes into a trading halt. The airline is set to lose around 6,000 staff, or 20% of their workforce, across Qantas and Jetstar. CEO Alan Joyce says the airline will be leaner in the short term as the industry continues to grapple with the pandemic. Here's some of what he had to say this morning.
This crisis has still hit us very, very hard. And the impact will be felt for a long time, particularly, I'm sorry to say, the impact on our people. We have to position ourselves for several years where revenue will be much lower, and that means becoming a smaller airline in the short term.
That footage courtesy of ABC News. Susie, this is a shocking development. We know the airlines are definitely doing it tough. We've always thought Qantas is in one of the best positions. What do you make of these changes?
Well, I think it's tragic, of course, anyone that loses their job, and particularly 6,000 of them.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
What I'm upset about as well is that the taxpayer, via the federal government, bailed Qantas out back in March to the tune of $700 million and then an additional $175 million domestically. And Alan Joyce at the time said that this should see them through until December. Now, I don't know what's happened in the last 3 months, but that's obviously not the case. All of this staff has already had to take their holidays, long service leave and all of that. And now at the end of it, they don't even have a little nest egg in order to make them survive now that they've lost their jobs entirely.
You know, Susie, this is a really interesting point because we've seen government bailouts before in the car industry and that money just goes, doesn't it? It's not like we ever get it back.
Well, I think it might have gone, some of it might have gone to the shareholders, and that I think is a worry.
That is outrageous, is seriously outrageous. Joe, do you think Joyce is the right man to get us through this?
Look, I did listen to his whole message in its entirety, and I have to say, when I listened to it, I felt like the pain he was putting upon many workers, many of whom are intergenerational. I grew up in Maroubra, and most of the guys, a lot of the guys I went to school with are baggage handlers there, or engineers at the airport, or plumbers. A lot of the girls I went to school with are hosties, many of them. And I know it's often the case that it is intergenerational, so this is going to hit some families really hard. Do I think Joyce wanted to deliver this terrible, heartbreaking news? No, and of course not. And when you listen to his speech, one part at the end is you get that real history of Qantas and the turmoil it's been through. It was celebrating its centenary this year. That's 100 years. And it launched, as he said, just post the 1918 Spanish flu in a time of turmoil. He feels like Qantas will come back, that people will want to fly again. So I wonder, was this decision perhaps a little premature? Should we have waited to see the government's announcement on JobKeeper? Should we have tried to have seen through, just pushed through to the other side to see flights back before he made these big announcements? Possibly,
well, he's never afraid to go the hard hog, is he? Remember when he shut down Qantas for 24 or 48 hours, where he just shut everything down? So he's not a man afraid to make the hard decisions and go forward, but that's a really interesting point that Joe has raised, Susie. Is this too much too soon?
Well, it's so hard because with this pandemic, no one knows when Australia is going to put be able to let overseas people back in. He's talking about 3 years before we see international travel being back what it was pre-COVID.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben,